Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome back to another exciting, jam-packed episode of FunBelt Podcast. My name's Jeremy Harper. I'm from Hellraiser. His name is Dusty Thibodeaux from the Warhawk Report. Missing in action tonight is Shane Mettlen, but that's okay. You and I can handle this, Tibbs, right?
I don't know. It's a lot to carry.
Hey, listen, I'm telling you, Tibbs, we can handle it, and I'll tell you why. We're professionals. We have been placed into the crucible in the fire that was Sunbelt Media Days, and we came out tougher than ever. So we can do this show, just you and me.
I still can't believe how hungover you were on day two.
I had some beer. It was fun. But you know what? We plowed through it, just like we're going to plow through tonight. Before we get to our guests, which are many, we have a little bit of Sunbelt business to discuss, including, but not limited to, the discussion of some QB1s being named this week.
Chandler's going to be quarterback.
I think every quarterback in the Sunbelt is named Chandler. We got two at least in Louisiana. Chandler Rogers from ULM was named QB1.
Not surprised.
Sophomore. And then Chandler
Fields. Not surprised by that one either. Also
a sophomore. Are they the same guy? Are they kind of moonlighting back and forth?
Not in the least bit.
Also named QB1, which is probably the least guarded secret in all of college football, Lane Hatcher from Texas State.
Head boob cat.
Given the keys, perhaps stoking that Arkansas State, Texas State rivalry that I want so much. So I'm pretty excited about that. So for the most part, really just down the line, the quarterback situation in the Sun Belt going as we foresaw it.
I've had no surprising breaks out of the quarterback position. The big surprise that did come out, the guys that stand behind the quarterback.
Go on.
Rashid Ali.
Yes.
Of Marshall. It was announced that he would be taking a leave of absence from the team due to a personal matter.
Indefinite of absence. Coach Charlie Huff said that there was some personal issues that had to be taken care of. And man, you know what? Listen, there's nothing less important than football. There really isn't. If you've got something in your life that you need to be there for, football can wait. There's going to be plenty of games. So I say to Rashid Ali, get your stuff together, take care of your business, no regrets. Football will be waiting for you when you come back.
But what do you think that does to Marshall in the Sunbelt East?
Oh,
we had him as a potential dark horse of the East. But what does that do for them?
Even though I just said that football is meaningless, but if football is everything, then losing to me, Rashid Ali, for these games is really a tough blow. He is the all-star of the team. You got a team there that's kind of looking for some veteran or a new presence at quarterback. They're in a new conference. Everything's new. Rashid Ali was like the jewel of that team. Like they're playing Notre Dame in week 2. Rashid Ali would have been the guy that the announcers were going to talk about when they talked about the hurt. And now Ali is gone. So maybe he might come back. I don't know. It's an indefinite. What does indefinite mean? Now, Coach Huff said that definitely he's going to miss the first game.
Not a big loss. I think they can handle Norfolk State regardless.
Are you sure? Because you know what, you give a lot of credit to these smaller FCS teams.
I would no longer pick Marshall to cover, but I would pick them on the money line.
Anyway, it's always hard to me, Tibbs. It's always hard to lose a star of the Sun Belt. He is just one of those guys that you would hear in national publications from national pundits from time to time. It's good to have that kind of representation. To lose him not only hurts the herd, it hurts the Sun Belt. But again, some things are just much more important than football, and we wish Rashid Ali.
Sean Clark put Chase Bryce in a bubble to protect him, please.
You know what? The thing about Chase Bryce, I feel like he's a tank. I've seen him in action. He's a big guy. He takes a lot of hits. I don't think he gets hurt.
Please, Sean Clark, for the love of God, protect the man. Jamie Chadwell, Grayson McCall needs a massage. He needs bodyguards.
Here's my thing about Grayson McCall. Like he already had like the whispers of the NFL in his ear. I could see him possibly getting hurt at the beginning or midpoint of the year, and then just packing up that team. Being like, okay, listen, I've got a future in football here. I can't get hurt anymore in college. I'm shutting it down for an injury that you might be able to recover from. What do you think? Am I just grasping at straws there, or have I become jaded by modern college football?
I don't know. And the reason I say that, we still don't know what his current state is going into the season.
Yeah.
We talked to him at Sunbelt Media Days. He said, it's going well. I'm throwing well, or I'm throwing. He didn't say that he was throwing well.
He did. That's how he put it. He said he was throwing. You're right.
Yeah. We just don't know how he is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that after that first game, he packs it in.
Could be.
Maybe it is.
That would be the smart move, but still, you're just like you'd like to see him play a whole season, because it would be good for the Chanticleers, but it'd also be good for the Sun Belt. Something that also wasn't good for the Sun Belt, Keith Gallman for South Alabama, safety, led the team in tackles in 2021, had 59 tackles. Done for the season, torn pectoral. Have you ever?
Luda.
What?
Luda.
What does that mean?
They still got Luda.
Oh. Anyway, have you ever torn a pectoral?
I've never done anything that would make me be in a position to tear a pectoral.
Have you ever torn any kind of muscle?
No.
What is the most severe injury you've ever had?
Broken kneecap.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rough. I broke a small toe, like the little toe. I broke that.
Is there a good story to it at least?
Yeah. I was working at a lumber yard, and I was explaining to this guy that's my coworker, what a genius I was, because I was a college kid and I was so smart and the future was bright. And we were moving like these enormously heavy blocks that we used to prevent the forklift from rolling away. And as I was talking, I hurled one of the blocks away from us, and it bounced back and came back and crushed my toe. And the guy I was talking to said, "How much of a genius are you now, slick?" Yeah, so I broke my toe.
So you can only count to 9?
No, I was still able to count. No, I didn't use my toes to count. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of counting, we've got not one guest tonight.
2?
No, we don't have 2 guests tonight.
3?
We have 3 guests tonight. You're gonna have to help me out with some of the names, because some of them escape me. There's so many. But we have Joe Iacono. That's right.
We'll let him tell us if it's wrong.
I think it's Joe Iacono. He is from Army. And guess what? Army, let's just say, has a prolific history with the Sun Belt, including coming up.
You want to hear some more history that I learned this week?
Oh, what's that?
Sun Belt Conference. 0-29 against the Pac-12.
You know what? I saw you put that stat out, and I was both stunned, but I was not surprised. I was stunned yet not surprised. I don't know how that works, but that's what it was. I was like, I know that Arkansas State, whom I'm a citizen of, have visited the Pac-12 on numerous occasions, and we always come back soundly defeated. So the teams has our number.
The teams with the closest potential of upset over Pac-12, not even with us anymore. Idaho and New Mexico State.
You know who does well against the Pac-12? It's the Mountain West. How come we can't get some of that magic dust that the Mountain West has?
Have you not been to San Marcos or Monroe or Lafayette? There's no mountains.
It's too damn flat in the Sun Belt. Maybe Appalachian State can go out there and help us with that. They can make that 3,000-mile trip to Pac-12 land.
Speaking of making trips,
Yeah.
you talked about Army invading the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
Our other guest, Andrew Jones
Ah,
from TarHeel Illustrated, is going to talk with us about North Carolina coming into the Sun Belt.
yeah.
Not as a realignment, Jeremy, but
Okay.
they are making back-to-back trips into Sun Belt country as they face Appalachian State and Georgia State.
This could very well be, Tibbs, a sort of audition for North Carolina. You know, they know that the ACC is kind of on shaky ground. You got the Big Ten and you got the SEC kind of picking off teams left and right. They might say, hey, Sun Belt, why don't you take a look at us? We're hit, we're happening, we're up and coming.
Out of those two teams in your Commissioner Gill, which one are you taking?
Between who?
Army and North Carolina.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know, I'm above all, I'm a patriot. So, you know, I respect what Army brings to the table. But I feel like North Carolina also has a fairly good basketball program.
And baseball.
Yeah, and Sunbelt could use some basketball, you know, a leader in basketball. So I guess if push came to shove, I'd have to go with North Carolina. But you know what? Why not both? We're at 14. Let's get 16.
Got to have balance. Got to add somebody from the West.
Now we have a third guest tonight. Somebody that's a little out of the ordinary.
Yes.
That's it? Just yes?
I was agreeing with you. Do you want me to not agree with you?
Well, I thought it was a perfect segue for you to say yes, and that person is.
And that person is Director of Volleyball for ULM Warhawks, Charlie Olson, as he gives us an education on volleyball and tells us the ins and outs of the Warhawks as they look to improve on their 7th place preseason prediction in the Sun Belt West.
Yeah, you know, he drops I think he's going to drop a fact on me that I did not realize about ULM volleyball, and I'm looking forward to talking to him about it.
I'm glad you are, because that's why we have him on the show.
All right, let's get going. Who do we have in the green room?
We're still a little over a week away from Sun Belt Conference action starting, but we're starting to peek ahead into weeks 2, 3, and even beyond, Jeremy.
And why not? We plunge deep into the Sun Belt, and that means plunging deep into the schedule.
And a team that's going to get really burnt by the Sun Belt. At least we hope so. North Carolina Tar Heels are going to take back-to-back trips into the Sun Belt as they will travel to Boone, North Carolina to face App State and Atlanta to face Georgia State. Joining us to talk about the Tar Heels, Andrew Jones with TarHeel Illustrated, part of the Rivals Network, joins us. Welcome in and tell us, how is Mac Brown going to fare in the Sun Belt?
Appreciate you guys having me on. I don't know. That's a really good question. I think there's so many question marks about this North Carolina team. I don't think anybody can sit here and say A, B, and C are certainties. There's A, they have a lot of talent, a lot of it's young. So you don't know what that means when kids get on the field, especially early in the year and in road games. And 2, what I expect will be very different atmospheres. Insane in Boone, and who knows what to expect in a noon game at Georgia State. So I think that both games could be tests for this club, in part because of the atmospheres, but also because I think that these two teams are better than people realize, especially Georgia State. I don't think anybody realizes that they actually played pretty well after the Carolina game last year. Most Carolina fans sort of dismissed them. They all respect App State, but these are 2 very losable games for North Carolina.
Do you take anything from that game last year against Georgia State, though, where y'all did get the 59-17 win over the Panthers? Or do you feel that these are just kind of night and day, that's in the past, and we're going to see completely different teams in a different game this year?
Well, what I take from it, and I said that night, I tried to warn Carolina fans that Georgia State was much better at the line of scrimmage than the score would indicate. In fact, there were a lot of wide open receivers, especially in the short passing game, that the quarterback for Georgia State missed. In fact, I think that kid transferred about a month later. He really struggled that night. And I think they saw the tape. They saw the missed opportunities that were left all over the place by Georgia State. So it looked really good on the scoreboard, but I think the coaches, when they looked at it on film and graded it, they were concerned, and they had every right to be concerned because it was a intermittently horrible defense and an occasionally good defense. And they were fortunate that night, but they are a different team now and they are a different defense. I think that the approach under Gene Chizik will handle a lot of the simple stuff better than the approach under Jay Bateman. He threw too much at these kids. There was too much communication. He was calling 2 plays per snap sometimes and letting them to sort it out, which was kind of crazy. And as a result, lots of dudes were wide open over the middle, not just for Georgia State, but for other teams too. So I think the Panthers were better than they looked that night, especially to the naked eye. And I think that North Carolina is a lot different defensively now, and they will be different going down there to Atlanta.
Andrew, Georgia State's a little bit of a dark horse in that really tough Sun Belt East. But the favorite is Appalachian State, and they're playing with a lot of confidence. In fact, if you look online, if you look through the Twitters first, they're very excited about the game with the Tar Heels coming in. I think they've sold out the game, but it's a smaller venue. It's not a venue. It's not an ACC venue. How does that affect the team being in that sort of compact area?
I heard Sean Clark on a radio show the other day, and he said that they brought in 10,000 extra seats. They're going to have 40,000 at the Rock.
Where do you
30,000.
Where do you put 10,000 seats?
I don't know. 30,000 at the Rock is pretty
premium seating at the 50.
Yeah, that's, I've heard people connected to App State and the Boone area say it's the biggest thing that's ever happened there. Keep in mind, Roy Williams took one of his teams there. Or maybe it was before Roy. I think maybe after Roy got to North Carolina, a Carolina team opened up the basketball arena at App State, but App State basketball doesn't move the needle. App State football moves the needle there. And this is an opportunity not just to beat Carolina, but to beat them again, because App went to Chapel Hill and delivered Mac. I guess it was his second loss. His first loss was to Wake Forest. In fact, Carolina loses at home to App, and a week later is a 2-point conversion situation away from maybe upsetting Clemson. So that's I think how good App is. And I think that Carolina remembers that, and they haven't really talked too much about it. Their focus hasn't really been anybody else. When I talk to the kids, it's more about the chip on the shoulder, how they played last year, the terrible showing in the bowl game. But I imagine when we get to next week, when they're in game week for App State, they'll talk. Some of the kids that were on that team will talk about that, because they didn't play well, but they also got whipped. They got whipped at the line of scrimmage. I think they got out schemed at times. They were beaten by that day, which was a better football team. And I do think because of that, App State will have their attention. Carolina will be ready to play when they go into Boone. Question is, will all those young guys be ready to handle that atmosphere? And I think what would be a very, very confident team playing a really good culture, a club that knows what it's all about and understands itself, even though it will be an opener. It'll be an extremely difficult game for North Carolina.
You were talking about some of the younger guys there at North Carolina. Who do you think teams like Appalachian State and later Georgia State's going to have to look out for that we haven't seen pop on the radar for North Carolina?
They have 10 true freshmen on the depth chart. And they had a top 10 recruiting class, top 12 recruiting class. Max said it's as good a class he's brought in as far as once the kids arrived. And some of these kids, I think, are going to play a lot. Andre Green is a wide receiver who is cut out of the mold of a dude you see on Sundays. They got 2 running backs, George Pettaway and Omarion Hampton, who at some point both could be the main ball carriers at some point this season. I'm not sure that's going to be the case when they go to Boone. DJ Jones is a junior, has a little bit of experience. They're probably going to lean on the experience early and ease these kids in. Although Andre Green is so good, and the kids, the way they talk about him is as if he's already the second best receiver on the team. Josh Downs is a record setter. He set Carolina records last year with catches and receiving yards. But Andre Green's somebody I could see stepping up early and just being another dude that they have at receiver. So I think that those are the young guys that App State fans might hear their names, might see them do some stuff. I think defensively, there's a lot. The Carolina defense is a little bit more experienced. They have a lot more layers to it. Travis Shaw was a top defensive tackle in the country in the class of 2022. He's in the rotation, but he's not going to get 35 snaps. He may get 12 to 15 early in the year. So it's more on the offensive side, and it's the skill guys. And then, of course, Drake May is a redshirt freshman, and he's the starting quarterback. And I think he won that battle pretty decisively, in spite of what the staff is saying. And I think he has a chance to be outstanding, Sunday outstandings. But lots of potential Sunday guys, a lot of potential Sunday guys with very few or no snaps under their belt at this point.
So we're used to seeing the games where App State's going to North Carolina, the G5 going to the P5. How did this kind of happen where back-to-back weeks, a P5 is going into the G5 and ironically into the same conference?
2 doses of Sunbelt heat. Nobody can withstand that. Andrew, how are they going to withstand that?
The Georgia State thing was all about recruiting, because they recruit Atlanta hard and they get Georgia Tech every other year. So they go down there. Now they're going to have 3 straight years where they go to Atlanta. I think the University of North Carolina's largest contingent of alumni outside the state is in Atlanta first, Washington, D.C. second. So I think that's part of it as well. It is kind of a head scratcher when you think about it, but this program needs road wins. They don't have many of those in recent history. So it's an opportunity to get some of those. As far as App goes, I'm not 100% sure how this came about. I was surprised when we learned that they were going to go to App, but I think it's cool though, because they've been playing home and home with East Carolina for a long time. And App State has risen to East Carolina's level. So if you're going to go to Greenville every once in a while, I guess it makes sense that you got to go to Boone too. And to be honest with you, after they lost at home to App State a couple of years ago, if you're a North Carolina fan, you want this game. You not only do you want them again, but you want to go to their place and beat them and then never go there again. They should never go back if they win this game. If they lose, they got to go back. And I'll tell you what, they've lost 3 in a row to East Carolina, and they think they've given up 160 points in those 3 games. So they're going to have to go to Greenville at some point and try to settle the score there.
So with that said, obviously,
that's true too. By the way. They've been throttled by those guys.
You talked about the recruiting. You talked about being able to get that road win. What does it do on the flip side if Carolina can either split, or even if they go 0-2 against the Sun Belt? What does that do for the season and then as the program as a whole?
Well, it could be a disaster. This is year 4 of part 2 of Mac Brown. It's time for the program to show on the field all of the improvements that it has been making. I think the program is in significantly better shape right now than it was when Mac took over. But at some point, you've got to show that on the field. You cannot have punts blocked inside the 20-yard line that lead to either immediate touchdowns or touchdowns on the next snap when you're going up against a struggling Florida State team in their place that gets them jazzed up. When you're in Raleigh and you're playing a rivalry game and it gets them jazzed up and gives away points, you can't do things like that. You can't go to Virginia Tech in a 6 overtime game and miss 2 or 3 field goals in overtime and end up losing a game like that. So they have to be able to strut out. The dudes are going to strut out, but they got to take care of the intangibles. They got to take care of the small things which allow the talent to show itself even more. And until they do that, it's hard to project that they will. I think that they'll be a better team this year than they were last year. But a lot of Carolina fans that are talking 10 wins, 11 wins and stuff like that, that's just crazy talk right now. I think right now, with a lot of losable games on the schedule, 8-4 would be a significant step forward, especially if they don't have those meltdown games. And they had some pathetic meltdown performances or no-shows last year. And in year 4 of a Hall of Fame coach with a great coaching staff, with top 20 recruiting class after top 20 recruiting class, you can't do that. At some point in the mediocre ACC Coastal Division, you've got to step forward and win games. And if you're losing at the Sun Belt teams, and no disrespect to the Sun Belt, but if you're losing to Sun Belt teams, then you're going to lose to ACC teams.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to talk Tar Heel football as we get ready for the 2022 season. Tar Heel is getting ready to take on 2 of the top teams in the Sun Belt East, the gauntlet that is the Sun Belt East.
It is a gauntlet, so be careful. We hope that you survive with everything intact.
Yeah, look, my survival is all about no typos and only a minimal amount of anger from our readers and the people who watch our pod. So that's my goal. In the end, it doesn't matter to me who wins. I just want to be good and clean. I got to take care of my intangibles, right?
I tell you what, though, you can't avoid flaming anger of malcontent fans who want a little bit
If
more
they
from
lose
Matt
those,
Brown.
if they lose those 2 games, that's exactly what it's going to be.
But it drives subscribers.
That might not. We have to wait for basketball for that.
All right, thank you very much.
What if they
Anthony.
win those games? It will. If they win those games and they start out 3-0, they have an open date after Georgia State, and then Notre Dame comes to town. So if they start out 3-0, which I think those will be 2 impressive road wins, especially the one in Boone, and they're 3-0 with an open date, and all these young guys have gotten a month under their belt of being in game week mode, and then Notre Dame comes to town, they have an opportunity to have a special season. I think that's a little too much for this club at this point in time, but maybe in a month it might not be. But we'll have to see what they do in Boone and down in Atlanta first.
So, Jeremy, we talked about North Carolina, 2 games coming into the Sun Belt.
2 games, that's a lot of games to play. That's 2 blasts of Sun Belt heat. That's a lot of heat.
Do you think they would fit as the 15th team into the Sun Belt?
I think they would need to adjust. North Carolina, they'd have a couple years where they struggled, but eventually they'd be able to compete. Yeah.
I have another candidate for you.
Okay.
A team that is literally invading, and they definitely know how to invade.
Okay.
The Sun Belt Conference. And that's the Black Knights of Army.
Holy hell.
Playing not 2,
not 2,
3,
not 3,
4 Sun Belt Conference opponents. 2 for the first time, 2 repeats.
That is absolutely wild. Last year, I think Liberty played 3 Sun Belt teams. And I thought that was crazy insane. That's so much Sun Belt heat. I mean, that's enough radiation to take out like an entire city. Army's playing 4 games against the Sun Belt? Are you shitting me?
Not in the least bit. And the guy that can tell us all about the Black Knights,
Yeah.
Joe Iacono.
Yes.
Bam! Nailed it. Nice win, Dusty. Good job.
I'm glad we can edit everything
Good
else
job.
out.
We don't have a ton of Italians in Louisiana, but good Italian food in Louisiana sometimes.
He's an honorary Italian today.
So Joe is with GoBlackKnights, part of the Rivals Network. Joe, welcome in and tell us, when you looked at this 2022 schedule and you saw 4 Fun Belt teams, was it exciting, or was it like, we have to go to Coastal Carolina and play on the Teal Field, and we have to go to Troy, Alabama, or was it more of an excitement?
So I think for me and a lot of the Army fan base, it was an excitement. I think the Fun Belt, as you guys call it, is definitely on the rise. We opened, I live in Atlanta actually. So we opened down here last year with Georgia State, and we're super excited to open down in, like you said, on the Teal Field down there in Myrtle Beach at Coastal this year. And Troy's in the greater Atlanta metro area, kind of, sort of. So we have a lot of grads down in this area. So that's a good game for us. Georgia State comes up to West Point this year. And of course, your ULM Warhawks come back to West Point. They were up there 2 years ago in the weird COVID season. So, yep.
So one thing I remember last year, we were talking about in the preseason, we were talking about that big Georgia State Army game. And one of our co-hosts who isn't here right now, but he was really excited about Army but felt like Army was beatable. And then Army just rolled over Georgia State like tanks, just destroyed them. And part of the thing is that Army seems to have a history, especially early in the year, of making opponents look silly. Why is that?
That's a really good question, Jeremy. Yeah. So since Jeff Monken's been the head coach at Army in 2014, we kind of honestly don't count the first 2 years because he was pulling the program completely off the mat, right? We were one of the worst teams, not only in FBS, but in all of college football. So if you start from 2016, he's only lost 1 opener, and that was at Duke when Duke had Daniel Jones at quarterback. And we made a couple key turnovers in that game. Otherwise, that team honestly probably could have and should have beaten Duke. They ended up 11-2. They were the team that took OU to overtime before they lost to them. So you look at the openers under Coach Monk, and they seem to play very well. And I think it's, you brought up a good point. I mean, I can't necessarily put my finger on exactly why, but I think he just prepares them very, very well. Him and the rest of the staff, they're very focused going into the first game. I think the other thing that helps, that's always a major factor in how Army plays, is the team's usually as healthy as they're going to be all year in the first game. And so you're getting the full Monty kind of versus, you play us in game 5, 6, 7. You don't exactly know who's showing up for Army, who's banged up. And as you would expect the Army to do, right? They keep injury info very close to the vest, very confidential. So even us being part of the Rivals Network, we have no idea who's healthy on a week-to-week basis. So
what is it about this Army program that's kind of able to find themselves sheltered from all of college football? And by that, they can't hit the transfer portal. They can't sign NIL deals. When you sign up, yes, you get your 1 year at the academy before you're actually inducted in. But for the most part, you're in the Army by the year 2. So your roster is pretty consistent. How does Army kind of handle the landscape of college football right now?
Yeah, so that topic's been coming up a ton, Dusty. So appreciate you bringing it up. So actually, the rule at West Point, and I know this because I was a grad. Actually, the rule is you get 2 years. Your first day of class, your junior year, is when your commitment clock officially starts. So you do get the first 2 years for free. So it's always been said, John Feinstein wrote a book back in the day called Civil War, highlighting the Army-Navy rivalry. And he talked about how the coaches not only have to recruit kids out of high school, but they got to recruit after they go to West Point Prep. And then they got to recruit them after their sophomore year to stay. We had our 2 best skill players on offense, Isaiah Alston and Tyrell Robinson, and entered a transfer portal after the bowl game last year. And about a month later, both of them decided to stay, thankfully. Those would have been huge losses to the offense, but the fact that both of them decided to stay was huge. So, kind of getting back to your original question, like you said, the transfer portal doesn't really help any of the 3 academies, right? It's a one-way portal for us. It's not a two-way street. So we only lose kids to the portal. We don't really gain anybody from the portal, right? Because if you come in at West Point, not that you can't play, but and we've had this happen once or twice, but you get to start over as a freshman, because it's not like you get to skip Beast Barracks, cadet basic training. You got to go through the whole shooting match, right? So there's all that. So it's a one-way portal. So obviously big disadvantage for Army. NIL, I don't think is as big a deal. And here's why I say that. A lot of people would disagree with me. I could be wrong, but I don't know how many kids ULM's getting that are signing multi-million-dollar NIL deals, right? And those are the type of kids we're typically competing for. We're not competing for the kids, the Collins Hill kid who signed with Deion Sanders. Like, he ain't coming to Army. Like, it's not even on the radar screen, right? So we're not as worried about that stuff. And when you look at what Army has to offer and what the coaches sell out on the recruiting trail is, and the line, all the kids know it, all the coaches say it, you hear everybody parrot it. You're not making a 4-year decision, you're making a 45-year decision. You got a huge, you come out, you have a guaranteed job as a second lieutenant in the Army, making a relatively competitive salary for a 22-year-old. Most West Point grads either stay in the Army and have a very successful service career or get out. And you look at the top, Fortune 100 companies and look at where all the CEOs went to school, and don't quote me on this, but I'm relatively confident West Point has as many CEOs as any other school in the country.
Nice.
You look at our average salary for all our graduates, it's right up there with the Ivy League schools, right? But you also get to play big time D1 football on national TV in the Army Navy game. You get all the other advantages of a D1 program, but with the academics and the full picture that you get from going to an Ivy League school. And I think what's made Coach Monken specifically successful at Army when so many other people have failed is he lives by the mantra. A lot of other coaches came in and said, we're going to try and win despite the fact that we have all these obstacles and that we're Army. And Coach Monken completely flipped that on its head and said, no. We're going to win because we're Army. We're going to be smarter and tougher than anyone we play. Come get some. Like, and the kids just eat it up. Like they are, you interview any kid on our team and it's like talking to one of the coaches, the exact same. I mean, the culture is deeply embedded. It's really cool to watch. Coming from I've been a fan since I graduated in the early 90s. And, you know, like I said, our program was we were below the basement. We were on a dirt floor of college football. And to see what he's done has been just unbelievable.
Who knew we were making a recruiting video for Army? I think Jeff Monken needs to see this video and hire Joe as like the hype man for every game.
I'm about to enlist.
Let's go fire some howitzers. It's a good time.
Damn, sounds like a weekend.
So when you look at this upcoming opening week game against Coastal Carolina, what do you see as far as a team that can kind of run the flex, can kind of run a little spread, can run some triple option? Does that kind of concern you and Army on that opening week that you're almost kind of playing yourself?
Absolutely, right? So there's definitely differences between the two offenses. We're more kind of pounding between the tackles, fullback first, right? We'll run the quarterback, we'll run the pitch, but, given the option, Army would rather just pound the fullback all day long, right? Whereas Coastal will spread you out. They've got the whole spread thing going on. They'll throw the ball, they'll pitch it. McCall will take off and run it. Very, very scary offense, no doubt about it. I interviewed Coach Monken after practice on Saturday. And the thing that he just keeps hitting on over and over again, the players do as well, is how well coached Coastal is. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't beat themselves. I think McCall had 27 touchdowns last year to 3 interceptions. They don't fumble the ball. They don't make a lot of stupid penalties. I don't understand how Jamie Chadwell has not gotten a P5 job at this point. The guy can flat out coach.
He pisses Till. He'll tell you he pisses Till.
It's like Monken. Monken's the same way, man.
Monken is the same way. They're literally like mirror images of each other in a lot of ways. And no, I think my biggest concern going in is the speed on the perimeter that Coastal possesses. If you watch the Wake Forest film last year, I think our DC Nate Woody is still having nightmares about that game. Wake scored on every single possession except the one. And typically Army's got a pretty good defense, but that game was a nightmare. And I think if our corners and our secondary aren't ready and they miss some assignments or they don't have good eye discipline against Chadwell's option, that could create a lot of problems. And then, it also, just like Army normally puts pressure on people to score every possession, Coastal kind of does the same thing. I think the one X factor that could help our defense is Andre Carter. Andre Carter's made a ton of preseason. He is an athlete Army doesn't typically get. He's 6'7", 260, projected as a first or second round rush end in the draft next year. Was second in the nation in sacks behind Anderson from Alabama. Absolute beast on the outside. He actually plays dog backer in Nate Woody's defense, which is basically the pass rushing backer. And he can also drop back in coverage. And with his 6'7" wingspan, he picked off a key pass against Georgia Southern 2 years ago. He is a guy, if he can get to McCall in the passing game and he plays his assignment in the option game, he's the one X factor that I think can maybe hopefully slow down Coastal's offense a little bit.
With that said, you also get to go down good old Fort Rucker in Alabama to close out your Sunbelt schedule there against Troy. Do things like that really matter in the Army game whenever you can play near a major military base?
Absolutely. Army has a good number of kids on the team whose parents served in the military, right? So anytime I think we can get near an Army base, it's great for fan attendance. First of all, you look at a school like Troy, I don't know how many fans are going to, I know in the Georgia State game last year, there are as many Army fans in the stadium as there were Georgia State fans. So there's a little bit of a home field advantage there. Army typically plays very well in the state of Texas for that reason, because there's a lot of military bases in Texas. And from a recruiting standpoint, I think it helps the coaches anytime you can get to a military town. So definitely looking forward to the Troy game and Army being able to play close to Fort Rucker.
All right. Well, I know that Thibodeaux wants to ask this question, but he's too modest or perhaps too fearful. What do you expect out of the Warhawks? I haven't even looked that far down the schedule yet.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I had to write the kind of game by game prediction article for Rivals this year for Army. So I looked at everything. I think Terry Bowden's a good coach for ULM. I think he's going to get the program moving in the right direction. I think a lot of G5 schools, what I've seen the last couple of years, and you guys probably know this better than I do, is a lot of it depends on your ability to recruit transfers in a lot of cases and get those high quality transfer kids, JUCO kids, whatever the case may be. There's a ton of high school football talent in the state of Louisiana, right? So, and nobody's saying you've got to beat out LSU, but if you could, compete with UL, some of the other teams down there, I think I expect a tougher ULM team than Army saw 2 years ago when they kind of just annihilated them. So I think ULM can definitely, the Warhawks can definitely, keep it close. I think the fact that if the game were in Louisiana, I think it'd be even a lot closer, but Army at home tends to play pretty well for the most part. If you take away the 2019 season, which was a disappointing season for Army, they've only lost one game at home the last 5 years. So they tend to play very well in the friendly confines of Mikey Stadium. But I think ULM is going to be an improved team. Be curious to see how y'all do in the Sun Belt this year, and see what kind of season you guys will kind of put together. What are you guys thinking? Have based on what you've seen so far preseason and everything, Jeremy? I mean, do you think winning season's a possibility, bowl game, or what are you guys looking at?
Jeremy's an Arkansas State guy, so he just likes to throw ULM under the bus, and especially
I just like to hear what people have to say about the Warhawks. They're one of my favorite teams.
Arkansas State is still trying to find a rival, so Jeremy just tries to pick fights with everyone. He's like, "Do you want to be my rival? Do you want to be my rival?" And so, I guess I'm the low-lying fruit that he can pick on.
He can pick on.
Listen, I'm jealous because
the last time Army played Arkansas State, it was pre-Jeff Monk, and Army got beat. I remember.
I can't even remember a play. Well, no.
It was like 10 years ago.
I want to say we tore down the goalposts for Army.
It was like 10 years ago. Yeah. I think Army turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. Typical pre-Monk and Army football. So, yeah.
So last year, y'all did open up with Georgia State. Y'all face them again this year. Do you think it's going to be kind of a rinse and repeat type thing, knowing that Georgia State has so much coming back with that offensive line? Or do you feel that was kind of, I don't want to say a fluke, but definitely Georgia State maybe overlooked it?
Georgia State, yeah, absolutely. I believe, and I think if you talk to Sean Elliott, he'd tell you they were unprepared for that game. They just were. I don't know why. They just were. Also, they hadn't really settled on Darren Granger yet at the quarterback position. I can't remember who started against Army, but
Cornelius Brown.
Okay, yeah. So I think once Granger got a hold of the offense, things changed a lot for them. They've got a strong running game. I would expect, I think in my article, I predicted an Army win at home, but close. I think probably a one-score game. It'll probably come down to the wire, and Army will find a way to win at home at the end of the game. I don't think Army's going to win by 5 touchdowns again. So,
by the way, I checked into it because it did sound familiar. I actually wrote a story about it several years ago. Arkansas State I don't know if it was the last time Arkansas State played Army, but we played each other in 2006.
Okay.
And we were so thrilled with the victory, Joe. that we literally tore down the goalposts and walked them out of the stadium. So that was a big deal for us.
When you're tearing down the goalpost against 2006 Army, that's something about your program.
It did hundreds of dollars worth of improvements to that stadium.
Hey, no, we won 14-6. And
Barn burner.
yeah, it was a big deal. Reggie Arnold pounded out 140 yards in the score. Man, we beat Army. It was a big deal for. Listen, you think that 2006 Army was bad? 2006 Red Wolves they weren't even the Red Wolves; they were the Indians. Was much worse. So we're proud to tear down goalposts in the name of Army.
Army. I think the only time Army ever tore down their goalposts was when it was like a couple years before that. They had the longest losing streak in the country, and then Bobby Ross came in as the head coach, and they finally won a game like after 2 years or something. So
now there's video of this tear down. So if you ever want to see it,
I'm going to go to YouTube and check it out.
I'll send you a link.
Jeremy's probably uploading it as we speak.
I can laugh about it now because Army's good. Like back 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have found it so funny, but now like that.
Well, Joe, we thank you so much for taking time out to give us a preview of the Army invading the Sun Belt Conference in the 2022 season. Looking forward to seeing how those games shake out, and we'll definitely be watching the season opener there when they travel to Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, that Coastal game is going to be exciting. I'm really pumped about that game. So
Hey, do me a favor. If you end up going, I don't know if you personally intend to go to that game. Take whatever vitamins necessary to build up an immunity to teal, because you will have teal overload at Coastal Carolina. I don't know if it's vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A and C and D. I don't know what it is, but prepare yourself. Like, all your military training's
well, it's concerning, right? Because the Army, we usually do camo, but like they have the teal unis, the teal field. I'm like, how do you see these guys? It's going to be super confusing. So
it might make you physically ill, and that's the whole point of it. So just build up a resistance, maybe.
I'll be ready. I will pump the antioxidants going in. So thanks, Dusty and Jeremy. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, and go Army.
Go Army. See y'all. Go Warhawks too.
All the talk of football, Jeremy.
Yeah.
There's more Sun Belt sports underway. Obviously, soccer going on with the Warhawks getting a big 3-0 win with a hat trick to open the season against Texas A&M Commerce. How did the Red Wolves do in their opener?
In their opener, they lost to UAPB. And here's what's funny about the opener with UAPB, Dusty, is that Arkansas State took 27 shots on goal. UAPB took 3. A-State lost 1-0.
Hey, it happens. It happens to us all, Jeremy.
Oh, man. But then we bounced back and beat UCA. So we're 1-1 on the season. We're good.
One of the other sports getting ready to start up.
Yeah.
The indoor volleyball season. And joining us.
Who's in the green room right now?
One of the Western Division, my Warhawks head coach, picked 7th in the West, but we're gonna rise.
Okay.
Like a phoenix.
Let's do it.
Charlie Olson, head coach, director of volleyball for the ULM, joins us to talk about the volleyball that the Warhawks are going to play this year in 2022. Welcome in there, coach.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. Going into year 4 and having played through a shotgun start year 1, having played through COVID year 2, having played inexperienced freshman year 3, and then now we're balanced and under the radar year 4. So here we are.
Do you know how to act not knowing that there's like national crises and global pandemics and everything else?
That's right. I mean, you always kind of keep an ear to the wind, and you said, okay, we got kind of a crisis overseas possibly, and COVID's still around, and we have the opportunity to play volleyball today. So let's just play the best that we can today.
So as I said, you're director of volleyball there at ULM over the indoor and sand volleyball outdoor. The Sun Belt just recently started sponsoring, taking it away from Conference USA with the expansion of the conference. Jeremy, I'm going to ask this and you're going to give me that look.
All right. Okay.
I know there's fewer people for sand volleyball, but what is the real difference between outdoor and indoor volleyball?
Are you asking me?
No, I am not asking you.
You implied that you were asking me.
I just knew that you were going to have a comment.
I'm not going to have any
Basically.
comment. No, I'm here to learn and listen.
Good. So the big difference is that there's only one game going on with indoor, and there's 5 to 6 with the exhibition going on with beach. So you play 10 at a minimum, 12 at a maximum with beach. You'd play 6 with a minimum with indoor, and you play up to, I think the rule is up to 16 players with substitutions with indoor. One has elements, one does not. You can pretty much decipher which one is which. Beach is in the spring for championship segment. You start in sunny late February. So there's that. And then you finish beach volleyball in May, which isn't even in the summertime. And then indoor, we get to be in air conditioning 24/7, 365. So there's definitely different cultures with the two groups. At ULM, we were the first, or one of the first teams to start beach volleyball back in 2013, the inaugural year with the collegiate beach volleyball in nationally here. And since then, we've been fully funded from a scholarship standpoint, and we still lean on shared coaches. So I went and hired an assistant indoor / head beach coach this past semester. He's now taken the beach team in this newly appointed head coaching role, and then spends the other half of his time here with us with the indoor side. So it's long days for everybody, but it's kind of an all hands on deck. Learn as we go, and love what you do. Now,
are the indoor teams and the beach teams, do they rumble? Do they have like a rivalry with each other? Do they kind of like
they get along for the most part, and currently we only have one player who plays both sports. So when beach volleyball first kind of started out back in 2013, the teams as they were starting up programs, they shared players. So the indoor team would then play sand, or majority of them would play sand. But since then, most of the teams collegiately now have separate rosters. So now we have 17 players on our indoor roster. I got 15 players on our beach roster, with one of those players playing both. So, we're looking to continually grow the sport, grow the game, grow the rivalries, right? And I think it's just it's always fun to go and support each other. When the indoor team's playing, our beach team is either working the desk doing stats to make some extra money, or in the stands cheering. And then with our beach tournaments, the indoor team is definitely out there working on their suntans. So
I'm kind of jealous of that. I mean, I wish I was still around to where I could go hang out and work on the tan, watch some volleyball. I mean, Jeremy, I would have had another 9-year career at ULM.
You've got hops. I've seen you jump. I think that you would probably have been a real benefit, a real addition to any team.
And I think you would have enjoyed the beach vibe, the beach culture. I mean, there's music playing the whole time, and it's a little bit more relaxed. It's not as, white collar as indoor has been for years. And it's just different.
And Tibbs looks really good in a tank top. So there's that.
I will take your word for that. Yeah.
So with that, you get started with a couple of tournaments, most notably this upcoming weekend at Tarleton State, but you'll get to play some familiar foes there with Northwestern State on the schedule. Do those in-state games mean a little bit more, knowing that really Louisiana is a state that just doesn't have very good high school volleyball to kind of feed up and grow that excitement of the sport?
Yeah, and not even that it's good or bad. Specifically in Northern Louisiana, it's rare. There's like 3 or 4 high schools in a 90-mile radius from Monroe that have high school volleyball, and that's not the same as in Texas or the rest of the United States, right? Or even in South Louisiana, where high school volleyball is fairly prevalent. But for us, for La Tech, for Gremlin, for Northwestern State, we don't have the access to the high schools with the level of players that can play Division I volleyball, at least not yet. I think we're probably a few years removed from seeing some players come out of Northern Louisiana to get to and be successful at the Division I level. But yeah, those games definitely mean more. I've known Sean, their head coach, for a long time, and there's a little bit of a rivalry for sure. And we both want to win. We both want to lay it out there. We play them twice this year. And we're going to give them our best lineup that first set. So
looking up and down the roster of your team this upcoming year, pretty young, a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. Is that kind of concerning that you don't have the experience maybe that other teams will, and that'll kind of hinder you? Or do you feel that that's just maybe giving you that advantage later in the year as they kind of learn the game, or even next year?
Yeah, so we're actually more balanced than what the roster kind of shows. All of our returning sophomores, they all played last year as freshmen. That was a big point that I wanted to do. I wanted to give them experience, playing like actual game playing experience, as opposed to most of the other teams in our conference that played their seniors, played their COVID seniors. Their freshmen didn't play, for the most part. Ours did. And we refueled with bringing on some all-state players with this freshman signing class, and then supplemented that with some graduate transfers that are all pretty talented. Last year, I had 9 freshmen on my roster. 8 of them played, and I had 1 true senior, Callie Astley, who ended up transferring to Buffalo for her 5th year. The other 2 seniors who graduated, they were technically juniors on the court. So last year was extremely unbalanced from a leadership standpoint, and playing efficiency standpoint. This year we're extremely balanced in all positions.
Let me ask you, just in competitive wise, we've got the new people that have come in and for indoor. Outdoor is sort of a getting it all put together. But for the indoor, Sunbelt has been competing for a long time, and actually plays really good volleyball. Maybe got a little screwed last year for the NCAAs with the Big 12 seeming to get in programs that, and this is Shane Mettlen's story that I got this from Tibbs, but from what I understand, Big 12 programs that got, a lot of the Big 12 programs that got in had very similar profiles to Sunbelt programs that got in. Who do you see as your big rivals or your big obstacles in the Sunbelt West?
So Sunbelt West, Texas State will always be up there, mainly because, Sean, he's going into, I think, his 3rd year, but he's been with the program now for like 16 years. So, and they do a very good job recruiting Texas talent, and then, some outside the state, but they will always be good. We acquired South Alabama, which is a travesty because they're good. Having, won the conference championship last year. We play them on the road twice this year. So that's going to be an obstacle for sure. They're extremely talented, very well coached, and, are coming off of a winning season. And then, we have our neighbors to the south who, I have my thoughts about our in-state rivals, right? But they're good, and they play with high energy. Luckily, we do not have to play them at their place this year. We get them twice at home, one of them being senior days. So that will benefit us, I think, more so than playing in the newly, refurbished gym that they have. Sunbelt is balanced, and you do all the preseason voting and so on and so forth. I think any team on any given day can win, and that's just how the conference is. It's pretty tight. If you were to look at historically win-loss, ULM obviously has not been at the top, nor at the middle, or not the bottom 2, just the bottom 1, right? So how do we get out of that that pit. And it's just, you have to work harder every day, more so than every other team. And we have to, just keep lighting that fire every single day for our players. Our first year we beat Little Rock. It was the first time in like 33 years. Like that stat actually existed. We've never beat Arkansas State ever. It's like 34, 35 years.
Oh man.
This year we had the opportunity to finally wipe out that crazy stat. These are the odds that are laid against our team, and yet we have 17 players that have volunteered their services and have said, yeah, we're winners. We hate losing. That's awesome. If we can continue that and get over that hump of the 21, 22, 23 points that we hit last year with inexperience, we're going to do some good things. Do I think we're going to win the conference championship? No, because we're not there. We're not there. However, I think we can get some traction during preseason, win some games that were statistically probably not supposed to come conference time, and stir up the pot a little bit.
I like it. And the best thing, Jeremy, we'll actually get to watch volleyball this year with the expansion of ESPN covering softball, volleyball, as well as men's, women's basketball. Does that mean more for your program, and you feel make it a little bit easier to kind of get that exposure that you want to build and establish your program?
Yeah, 100%, especially as some of our conference foes, they have Texas State. I think every single one of their games and matches in years past were a ESPN broadcast, and ours last year we had to, pick 3 or 4. Well, why not 9? Why not all of them? That is awful, especially when we don't have one player from Louisiana that's on our roster currently. And all of them need to have access to have their families, watch them play if they can't make it at, home or away. I think that just adds and really helps grow the game. And I'm a huge proponent of the coaches within the volleyball community, because we're all trying to push exposure to our sport. How do we give someone an opportunity to watch something other than football during the fall, other than and soccer deserves it as well. We deserve the exposure, even if it's just ESPN Plus, we're an online only. Give us some platform to be viewed.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. No, I love it.
And I know I'll at least watch it. Jeremy won't, but I will.
I will watch. Well, I'll watch. Definitely.
Coach, we thank you so much for your time joining us, spreading the word of Warhawk and educating us on volleyball as we get ready for the upcoming season beginning later this week, Jeremy.
Looking forward to it. I do enjoy the volleyball season.
Jeremy, hopefully you learned something from Director of Volleyball, Charlie Olson, about volleyball.
I cannot believe that the Warhawks have never defeated the Red Wolves at volleyball.
It feels that way in football too.
We have a long string of victories against Warhawks on the gridiron. That's true. I did not expect to hear that about volleyball, though. Wow.
Yeah.
Get it together, Warhawks.
I'm doing what I can. With that said, though, it's time for our plugs, promos, and parting shots.
Okay.
Jeremy, lay it on us.
All right. Well, my parting shot, I don't really have a plug except for read Hellraiser.com, is a message to Troy, who recently had some kind of fairly awful news come out, some brouhaha going on in the locker room. I won't go into it. I don't feel like it. I feel it's kind of gross and disgusting, but I really do feel like that college football and just any athletic program in general sometimes needs to stand back and say, let's act like adults here. I know we call these guys 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids, 20-year-old kids. It's not time to be kids anymore. It's time to grow up. So Troy, clean up your act. And that's all I'm going to say about that. How about you, Tibbs?
Point of clarification earlier when we said that Arkansas State had beaten Army, that was in 2006.
It was.
Arkansas State later had to vacate such victory due to NCAA violations.
That's
So good
true.
luck to you there, Jeremy.
Yeah, that sucked.
As always, warhawkreport.com for the latest on Warhawks.
HalRazor.com for the latest on Arkansas State.
And this is FunBelt Podcast. We'll be back again next week on Thursday.
Yeah.
We get ready to preview week 1 action. A lot of action this week, but no Sunbelt Conference games going on. I'm going to take a little peek at that Nevada game to see what Texas State's going to be facing next week, as well as the brouhaha that is happening between Jacksonville State and Stephen F. Austin with new head coach of the Gamecocks, Rich Rod, claiming that the Lumberjacks have sent coaches to record his practices and his games.
Yeah, what a mess that is. And by the way, August 27th, this Saturday, is the Global Classico featuring a Texas college football team, Division II or whatever, against the Red Wolves of Mexico. So week 0, Red Wolves will be playing. It just won't be Arkansas State in Jonesboro.
Oso Blanco is white bear. What would you say is red wolf in Spanish?
Well, that'd be rojo. What's dog? Rojo.